So reading from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, Chapter 8, Text 38. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jai Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jai Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 Amanishtarite Tomara Ihan Agamana Paramadayalu Tume Patita Pavan. You have come here specifically deliver me. You are so merciful that you alone can deliver all fallen souls. Purport, Narottam Das Thakur sings in his Prarthana 39, Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Daya Kora More. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, Maharaj, we hear you now.
Okay. What's going to happen now is my computer.
Is the microphone covered because it's standing up like that?
What?
Is the microphone covered because you're standing up like that?
No, they can hear me now. It just what's happening is my computer crashed. I wrote about that in my Monday morning greetings. It's called The Joy of No Text. TEXTS. And I reprinted an article I wrote years ago called Windows to the Material World. So I'm doing everything. I even had to write the Monday morning greetings. This is, I had to do this now because this thing just shines. Shut off this light and see if there's other lights. Turn on all the switches. Yeah, turn off this light. Okay. Now shut off that. Shut off this light. This one. Yeah. What? Oh, you did? Okay, that's better. Okay. So I don't know, stuck with just an iPhone. And I kind of like it. Anytime my computer goes on the blink, my spiritual life deepens. But I do need it for my service. And what's going to happen with this phone, I don't know why. Every once in a while, the sound is going to go off. This is going to be annoying. Someone will send me a message. I'll call back and you'll get sound again. That's the only way this is going to work. But I'll just get right into this now. And please be patient. Om Gyana Timarandasya Kananjana Shalakaya Taksurun Militam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Mano Bhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Sayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Sapadantikam Vansha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhayevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So I've decided I'm giving class here. By Krishna's grace, somehow or other, there's always a few souls that come. This is how I study. Which Prabhupada told Tamal Krishnamar, said 2 hours of preaching or teaching is worth 2 hours of study. So I don't really, my concentration is mostly japa, not studying. And this is how I study. So thank you for accompanying me. And it's really wonderful again. You know, when I'm in America, it's like twice just my sanghas, but here it's every day. And it really builds up your frame of reference. So this is the Madhya Lila. Madhya Lila means mostly Lord Chaitanya's traveling. After he took sannyas, sannyasi travels. And it's described in the story of Narada Muni when he leaves home. What happens when you travel is that you learn dependence on Krishna, which invokes love in your heart. Because when you stay in one place, you develop the illusion that I've controlled everything. And sometimes it can be a security, sometimes it can be an insecurity. But your idea is everything around me is been put in place by me. And you tend to forget that not a blade of grass moves without God. I will discuss with my tech man why this happens, but Joe Cayley was quick on the switch, so I'm back. It's going to make it challenging, but yeah, there's a wonderful sense of dependence on God, because you really feel his love and shelter. And the first symptom of Sharanagati, we say Sharanagati is surrender, but it's more Sharanagati, where you go for your shelter. Where you go for your shelter. And it's really easy to see that when you put yourself in a situation that's beyond your material protective agents. Prabhupada put that situation. Material protective agents. So Lord Chaitanya, Acharya Lila, he's setting the example. I mean, there's different ways to develop dependence. One way of developing dependence is just sitting in one place and depending on God, whatever he sends. I'm reading the wonderful biography of Ayendra, which I was fortunate enough to be the spiritual director for the first 3/4 of it until I really felt it was, on its own safely. It's incredibly written. It's the standard. There's not been a literary work in ISKCON to this standard. This is so professional. What he's done is what Kalachandri, who's one of our Sangha members, what he's done is brilliant. And because I'm a writer and I have some sense of communication, I'm seeing the subtleties of the communication. because I always make the point, as important as speaking the truth is having the truth understood. And having the truth understood means understanding who's reading it and how they understand things. And Iyengar is a very, very controversial figure. I'll just read. I mean, anyway, this is my inspiration, but the preface is so brilliant. I think I can even read it. Generally, when you read things, you lose your audience. A personality like Iyengar cannot be described in one book. Meditative and explosive, serious and comic, shy and outrageous, simple and complex, a dedicated and expert musician, scholar, pujari, kirtaniya, teacher and disciple. Iyengar was a composite of diverse, even contradictory qualities and often misunderstood, but he was always intense and not merely different, but unique, seeming to be not of this world or bound by it. Whatever one view of Iyengar's ideas, his potency cannot be denied. And even today, he remains a leader on the front lines of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Sankirtan movement. His kirtans touching hearts
in progress.
Is this as frustrating to you as it is to me? His kirtans touching hearts and transforming lives around the world. Continue to attract the people to and support them in Krishna consciousness. Many contributors helped produce this volume. Akinchana Krishnadas and a team of devotees conducted hundreds of hours of interviews. Braj Kishore Das drafted an early version, and Yadavendra Das coordinated the project. Multiple readers offered comments, corrections, and suggestions, or otherwise participated in the years-long effort. I have to say they wanted to put me in the preface, but I preferred not. Contained here are stories told from a range of perspectives by individuals who interacted with Iyengar Prabhu at different stages of his life. It is far from exhaustive and makes no claim to be the sole definitive version. Even that is such good communication, because Iyengar, many people had different views, and the disciples take the mood of the guru. So Iyengar was like a guru figure, although he didn't initiate it. And Iyengar was very, very intense. And the people who followed him were like that. And they had really strong views about what Iyengar was and what you should say in the book. So even in the preface, he's so expert, he has to put it, it's far from exhaustive and makes no claim to be the sole definitive version. There are many, many inspiring, instructive stories about Iyengar, not included, and readers are encouraged to share their own experience and views of his life, teachings, and influence. When I read this, I can understand how expert Kalachandji is, that he's seeing this aggressive audience and speaking to them in the preface. Likewise, a great cast of characters played roles in Iyengar's story. Some may seem more prominent in this book because they are more extensively quoted, but as many as are mentioned in this account, even more are not, and among them some of Iyengar's closest associates, because some of his most powerful people were very heavy. I don't want to be in the book. So, requests to not be included have been honored. Other omissions are without intention, but none diminish any of those devotees' importance or or contribution to Ayendra's and Srila Prabhupada's mission. After Ayendra's departure, one senior devotee reflected, in order to understand Ayendra Prabhu, first you have to love him. It is my hope that this volume will help readers get to know Ayendra as a person and as a devotee, to come to love him and gain a clearer vision of him as an exemplar of dedication and chanting the holy names in kirtan and japa, maintaining one's spiritual vows, following the instructions of and remaining faithful to the spiritual master, reading books by Srila Prabhupada and the Vaishnava Acharyas, serving Srila Prabhupada Society, and reestablishing the practice of Harinam Sankirtan. In service to and for the pleasure of the Vaishnava, in service to and for the pleasure of the Vaishnavas, I beg the reader's forgiveness for any errors or offenses and humbly offer this volume at the feet of Sri Sri Radha Swami Sundar, who daily cast their magnificent gaze and bestowing their blessings on the dedicated participants in Krishna Balaram Mandirs, Ayendra's 24-hour kirtan, Kala Chandri Das, May 15, 2021. Anyway, it's fantastic. I'm reading it. It's full with so many deep realizations on the holy name, on Vrindavan, on worshiping the deity. It's really something. Now back to this story, and we'll probably not even get to it. I'll just make comments, is that this is going to go out. I don't know what to do now. My computer's not there. It crashed. It may take some time. But this going out, I hope it increases the flavor of the class in a very strange way. I gave a summary of the whole Uddhava story in an hour, and it was translated. So it's like basically a half hour. And when I began with it, I began, with Uddhava, Krishna looking for a messenger to deliver the most confidential message to the gopis. And what are the qualifications that messenger would have to have? He would have to be an expert counselor because he would have to be sensitive. The gopis, I explained so many things. Why he'd have to be very learned to understand what the gopis' sentiment is. Why he would have to be very devoted to Krishna so Krishna could reveal his confidential heart. Why he had so many things. But I explained that why Krishna was in anxiety and how it's not a contradiction that God's in anxiety. And I explained it through Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. In Raghavartman Chandrik, he explains that God must be Sarvagya, all-knowing, and Mugdata. And Mugdata means forgetful, not knowing. And why God must be not knowing? Because why he must not know also? Because he knows that everything, there's no surprises. And surprises are fun. And in fact, in rasa, in love to come to its height, there's drama. So I explained that Krishna must be forgetful because the element of surprise is so important in love coming to its height. If you're all knowing, there's no drama. In the spiritual world, there's drama. So I'm trying to make an excuse that this is going out, and I hope it enhances the class because it creates some more emotion and more drama. I'm left with this phone. I don't know how long it'll take for my computer to be fixed. I'll get my technician at least to figure out why this keeps on going out. So anyway, Lord Chaitanya, when he's 24, takes sannyas and he's traveling and he's preaching because he has an external mission and an internal mission. External mission means Bahir Rangi Hetu. Bahir means external. External mission is why God comes for others. And Antaranga Hetu, his internal mission, why he comes for himself. So he comes for others to give Kevala Bhakti, to give spontaneous love, to give Raganuga Bhakti. And why he comes for himself is God wanted to experience the love of his devotee, the topmost devotee, Sri Radha, at the height of her love. So now we're in this part where he's traveling. And the story begins with describing the relationship between Ramananda Roy and Lord Chaitanya as the relationship between the ocean and the clouds. The ocean gets filled up by the clouds, but the clouds come from the evaporated water on the ocean. So Ramananda Roy is described like the clouds because he's giving in Lord Chaitanya's mission to taste the love of his topmost devotee. He must get that love from a devotee, and that love must be nourished by instruction from the devotee. So he gets that love from his guru, Ishvara Puri. Remember, people like this when I was discussing it, maybe I was teaching Chaitanya Bhagavat, that conviction changes consciousness. So when Lord Chaitanya surrendered to his guru, his consciousness changed. Because he okay, we're back. Okay, we're back. You can hear again. I hope quickly got to get my train of thought here. Getting some notes here from the chat, but I don't know where to.
Maharaj, you were saying that conviction changes consciousness. Can you hear me?
I'll try to get it fixed by the next time because I lost my train of thought. Okay, anyway, so Lord Chaitanya it's going to describe how he meets Ramananda Roy, and he's traveling. And there's something called the transcendental system. Prabhupada gave this term. The transcendental system means that God is in our hearts and God is in the hearts of the devotees. And sometimes when a devotee needs to be connected to another devotee, they mystically meet. This is how one may meet Guru, how one may meet a Vaishnava. And that's why it says that in the story of Narada Muni, so instructive, when he was dissatisfied, he went into his heart real deeply. And he wanted to know why. Human life begins with the question of why. Why I am suffering. When you actually want solution. So when you go into your heart very deeply, God is not only hearing in your heart, but God's in everyone's heart. And he may instruct someone and arrange that person meets you. And that's what happens. Narada Muni shows up because of his sincerity. So Lord Chaitanya is just wandering around. There is no particular direction. and he sees the Godavari River, which he sees as the Jamuna. And that's a Vaishnava's vision. He sees through the lens of his or her relationship with Krishna. He sees through that lens. And therefore, everything reminds him of Krishna. So he sees the Godavari River and he feels it's the Jamuna. And he sees the banks of the river and he feels that this is the Vrindavan. And then he bathes. And then at the same time, and this is the transcendental system, somehow or other, that person, which he was told to meet, at the very same time, I wrote about this, an original argument for the existence of God, synchronicity, where two events come together beyond the law of probability that they do so. And that really instills faith. That happened to me yesterday. I was thinking about this devotee, that I had to meet this devotee. And there was something in my mind that was disturbed. And I was just walking, and it's like, when I came in the gate, that person came in the gate. And I knew it was meant to be. But there's more startling coincidences than that. And we all have that in our lives. And that's one of the main ways we get faith in Krishna, that we see how a lot of times we see that what happens to us corresponds with the experience that we need, exact experience we need to go further in Krishna consciousness. And the only thing we can do sometimes is get an experience and an awareness of that so that we don't overreact to that experience and don't see that experience as something that's separate from the mercy of God. And therefore, when you see it that way, it's very easy to learn. So anyway, what happens in this beautiful scene is Seva Sadhaka Rupena, Siddha Rupena Chatrahi, that in the spiritual world, you have a form in Gaur Leela, in perfection, as a practitioner of Krishna consciousness in Chaitanya's Leela, and you have a Siddha Rupena, you have a perfected form in Krishna Leela. And sometimes we say, how is this possible? Anything is possible when it's under the jurisdiction of God. Tadejati, tadnaijati, tadure, tadure, tadejati, tadnaijari, tadure, tarantike, tarantarasya sarvasya telusama. God walks, he doesn't walk. He's near or far. He's inside, he's outside. How is it possible? Because when God directly runs things in his internal potency, it's not under the laws of nature. Yeah.
Doesn't mean, Maharaj, that Gaur Leela has its own independent way, or independent from Krishna?
Yes. But I can't discuss now because the people here can't hear. So it's not just Ramananda Roy. It's one of his most. It's Vishaka.
Progress.
Okay, the bad news is my phone is not working good. The good news is that the internet is working great. So I can get back on. So what was my last point? What?
Special position of Ramananda.
What?
The special position of Ramananda Roy.
Yeah, so So when he sees, Ramananda Roy is Mahapandit. He's a magistrate, and I described before in India, it's not like the police commissioner of New York. He looks like he's another ordinary. In India, when you have a position, it comes with the accoutrements of power. So if you're like a magistrate, it's like, so he's a very high position. What does it mean? He has a retinue of so many people. And because he's taking bath, Brahmins are with him, chanting mantras, and he has his soldiers. But at the same sense, he's from a special caste called Kayastha. And Prabhupada said Kayasthas are Sudras who generations after generations have been the servants of Brahmins or Kshatriyas. And after many generations of birth in these families, they have like a karma that even though they're born in those families, they're like Brahmins, or in some places they're like Kshatriyas. So he's like a Kshatriya, but in one sense, it's a Kayastha, so it's not like a Kshatriya family. So he's a very unusual person, and they become attracted to each other because that's what love is. Love is when there are two people in relationship, there is an energy between them that goes beyond any intellectual analysis. So there is an energy between them, and it's a profound energy between them. Because this is an energy between Srimati Radharani and her closest girlfriend. So Lord Chaitanya feels like running there, but he has to restrict himself because he's a sannyasi. And he has to restrict himself for two reasons. One, sannyasis are the gurus of all other varnas and ashrams. So the other people have to come to them. And they don't associate with people in politics, in kings, because kings keep the accoutrements of power. They have to demonstrate their material enjoyment, their aishvarya, to elicit the subservience of the citizens. In those days, with the sannyasis, where Prabhupada said, we can't be sannyasis like days of yore, but at least some social intercourse, we have to be very careful. So eventually Ramananda Roy comes to him, and it's very, very intense. They embrace, they begin rolling on the ground. And the Brahmins, they're stunned for so many reasons. One reason is he's a Sudra, and a sannyasi won't associate with a king, and it's a higher class. The sannyasis are the Brahmins, so there's so many reasons. And also, this Ramananda Roy is a Mahapandit. Mahapandit, great learned persons, are supposed to be sober. When you have learning and knowledge, you should be a little bit kind of sober, because your buddhi, you're sober when you're ruled by your intelligence and not your emotions. So people have highly developed learning, and in the mode of goodness. What the mode of goodness allows you to do, it gives you Prabhupada said it's the pensive platform. And it gives you some time between what happens to you and how you react. When you're in the mode of passion, there's very little time between what happens to you and how you react. And when you're in the mode of ignorance, there's no time between what happens to you and how you react. So the fact that he's emotional and he reacts and it's beyond Varnashram and so many things, the Brahmins are like, they just can't, they can't accommodate it in their present frame of reference. And then Ramananda Roy and Lord Chaitanya, they realize what happened. And then it's just a psychological fact that I explain this is something that
in progress.
Okay, something that is confidential is not understood. Something that is confidential is not understood outside of your own heart and your own experience. And therefore, you don't reveal that. Because what a cultured person is, one of the main attributes of a cultured person is the ability to communicate. And that's poor communication. If you reveal your thoughts publicly to people who can't understand them. We want good communication. We want to be understood properly. That's the purpose of communication. It enables you to function within this world. So Lord Chaitanya, he and Ramananda Roy understand this, and they become sober, and they say we'll meet in a secluded place, a private place, and then Ramananda Roy in these verses begins to glorify Lord Chaitanya because he understands that this is basically God in the mood of Sri Radha. And the one quality of a spiritual person is humility. That's the foundational quality. And humility means that we accept that there's an authority above our own opinions and our own desires. That's humility. And not only that, but we're happy about that because we want to take shelter. So St. Augustine, when he said there are three qualities that mark a spiritual person. One, humility. Two, humility. Three, humility. So, and humility is foundational. I mean, humility also means you're free from envy, which is just the other side of what humility means. Because what envy is you're not happy. You're not happy to be under anyone. You want that position yourself. So psychologically, you hate anybody and try to bring down anybody who has a position that's superior to yours. Envy creates a lens that makes you see people less than they are for your own psychological, material ego. So a spiritual person, humility is very easy for them. My friend, he was initiated in Vrindavan by a great scholar, and he was described taking him to the doctor and how submissive he was, because it was just in his heart that there's knowledge beyond, that there's authority beyond his own. So when he's in a doctor, he's with a medical authority. So he was such a good patient. I remember when I was in Colombia and I was at my dentist and I was sitting in that chair, and I don't know, I didn't have many cavities in my life, but I had 9 cavities. And somehow he convinced me to drill without any anesthesia. And I was sitting in that chair. And I realized that
Recording in progress.
Okay, anyway, that's when I wrote that article, The Absolute Tooth. Xavier, he feels, Ramananda Roy feels with this connection. Because he's also feeling, see, Lord Chaitanya is looking at him as his guru, but he's looking at Lord Chaitanya as his guru. So they both have this feeling that it's God's mercy that brought one of them to the other. It's God's mercy. And now he's speaking with his understanding of who this is, because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Patita Pavana Hetu. His cause is Patita Pavana Hetu. Hetu means cause. What's the cause? Patita Pavana, to save those who are very fallen. You are so merciful, you alone can deliver all the fallen souls. So here's a perfect candidate to feel mercy because he's humble. And when your gratitude is so important in spiritual life because it's a reflection of the soul, it's a reflection of humility. You appreciate, you value. Without gratitude, you don't value. Without gratitude, you will not understand God because you cannot value God. You know, I was telling the story today of the story of Mukunda where Lord Chaitanya rejected him. And finally, he petitioned, let me know when I will get your darshan again. And he said, Lord Chaitanya was very upset with him. I'm not going to go into this story, but he said in 1 million births. And he said, I will. He was very happy. Then Lord Chaitanya was pleased with him. Why? Because he had faith. It's not a cheap thing to get the Vaishnavas, to get the association. Right now, we're sitting in Govardhan Hill. We're not going to appreciate it unless we're humble and we have gratitude. That means we value it. And if you don't value it, you won't worship it. You won't appreciate it. Prabhupada said we advance by appreciation. Prabhupada used the word appreciation as a synonym for faith. Because what faith is this is so good. How does bhakti begin? You appreciate devotees or the experience. And as the appreciation increases, appreciate also means to increase. When you appreciate, you appreciate first just the general concept, then you appreciate the people.
In progress.
Well, I hope you enjoyed the separation and union rasa as much as I did in this class. I'm trying my best. I'm right now just looking at all the nice people who took the effort to stay on and listen to the class despite the difficulty. At least my internet is good. And if I don't screw up, I can get on in a couple of seconds. we'll end for today. I'm working on the technology. It's all up to Giriraj. He wants me not to be distracted at all. I'm relishing here the association of the Vaishnavas. Spent some time with Purijan today. Wonderful. You really see how deep and transformed people have gotten in Krishna consciousness. Had a little association with Satchidananda Swami the other day. I described before this, Jamuna Jivana visited me for 2 hours. And it's just wonderful, because that's what really inspires you. When you see people have something, then you get faith and you want it. Okay, anybody like to say hello?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Can you hear me?
Well, no one can hear me, so how can you say hello? Hi.
Hare Krishna Guru. Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna, thank you very much, Maharaj.
I go, okay, yeah, you could. Oh, okay. What? 1 minute. Rati, Haribo.
Jai Maharaj.
I can't hear anybody, but people could wave to me. Okay, anybody else like to say hello? No?
You still can't hear us?
You have to wave.
Hare Krishna.
No?
Thank you.
Gail, Sri Radhika, okay.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, Gordon Bhaktadas.
Mercy. Up or
Hare
on?
Krishna Maharaj, Vatsundari here. Thank you very much for the class. I don't know if you can hear me.
Hare Bol Gurudev, thank you.
Anybody else? Amala, Hare Krishna. Good. Okay, anybody else?
Thank you very much, Maharaj. Thank you from
Rita, okay.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj.
Okay, I'm Bye.